على من لا نبي بعد نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اقتفى أثره واستنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما إلى علمنا ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Inshallah, we'll continue with reading from the book known as the Musannaf of Abu Bakr Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Shayba rahimahullah ta'ala, who died in the year 235 after the Hijrah. And we're in the chapter still, Bab Tark al-Wudu mimma massathu an-nar. Those who, or man kana la yatawadda'u mimma massat an-nar. Those who did not make wudu because of that which was touched by flame. Right? The statement of those individuals, what has been mentioned regarding the statements of the Salaf, from those who would not make wudu because of something that was cooked over a flame, something that was touched by the flame. And we've mentioned several statements of the Salaf from the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, and the author is still continuing in this chapter. So there's still more narrations to go in this chapter that we didn't finish last time. So the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions, he says, حدثنا حشيم and Husayn and Yahya bin Wathab عن ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنهما أنه قال الوضوء مما خرج وليس مما دخل ولا مما أوطي. He says that Hushaym narrated to us on the authority of Husayn, on the authority of Yahya ibn Wathab, on the authority of Yahya ibn Withab. Yahya ibn Withab. متأكد. يحيى ابن وثاب بالشدة. يحيى ابن وثاب. يحيى ابن وثاب خاء ميم تاء سين قاف بالتشديد المثلثة الأسدي مولاهم الكوفي المقري ثقة عابد من الرابعة مات سنة 300. Yahya ibn Wathab. Naam, he said that Hushaym narrated to us on the authority of Husayn, on the authority of Yahya ibn Wathab, on the authority of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, who said, Al-wudu is because of what has exited, and it is not because of what has entered, nor because of what was mounted. I'll translate it that way. Nor because of what was mounted. Here, this is this qaida that we've heard similar to it from Ibn Abbas before regarding what necessitates a wudu and what doesn't. Right? He says that al-wudu min ma kharaj. Wudu is necessitated because of something leaving the body. Wudu is necessitated because of something leaving the body. The things that your body expels from excrement, from waste. These are things that necessitate wudu. And it is not because of what enters the body. According to the statement of Ibn Abbas, nothing that an individual consumes necessitates a wudu. Not camel meat, not something touched by the flame. Nothing that an individual consumes necessitates wudu. And then he says, وَلَا مِمَّا أُوطِيَ. Nor is wudu necessary or necessitated because of that which is mounted. Well, wata, they use it linguistically, it means to step on, to trample underfoot. And I only understand it here to mean intercourse, right? They would use it as a word to describe intercourse. When you mount something, when you trample something underfoot, right? When you pounce on something like this. So he's saying wudu is not because, and Allah knows best, what is mounted, i.e., wudu is not because of something that you have under you. It's not because of what you have underneath you. And Allah knows best, if I'm understanding it correctly, then what he's saying is that wudu is not necessitated because of intercourse. And we know that wudu isn't necessitated because of intercourse, but instead what is necessitated because of intercourse is a ghusl. And so it would be him stating that wudu is not necessary because of intercourse, but instead it would be a ghusl necessitated. But Allah knows best. Maybe the more proper way of interpreting this, if I'm understanding the word correctly, I couldn't find anything that illuminated or shedded light on this particular ether. But maybe he's saying nor because of what you touch, which would go in line with his position about wudu not being necessary because of touching a female, caressing a female. And so in this circumstance, if we take this statement to mean that wudu is because of what enters, wudu is because of what exits, not because of what enters, nor because of what you mounted or what you have underneath you, or nor what is underfoot, nor because of what you touch. Wudu is not necessary because you touched something, right? It's not necessary because you touched a woman that you have to make wudu, because wudu is only necessitated by what your body expels. And Allah knows best. This is the narration, and obviously the point of reference is him saying it is not because of what enters, i.e. what your body consumes does not necessitate a wudu. نعم, he says حدثنا هشيم عن حسين عن إكرمة أنه قال الوضوء مما خرج وليس مما دخل. Right, this statement, again, a principle, Ikrimah rahimahullah ta'ala, the freed slave of Ibn Abbas, saying what his teacher mentioned. He said that, Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba, he says that Hushaym narrated to us on the authority of Husayn, on the authority of Ikrimah, who said, wudu is because of what comes out, not because of what goes in. Wudu is because of what comes out, not because of what goes in. And so therefore there's no wudu necessary because of something that you consume. Naam. He says, حدثنا غندر ووكيع عن شعبة عن محمد ابن عبد الرحمن ابن زرارة أنه سمع محمد بن عمرو ابن أبي أو ابن أبي يحدث عن أم الطفيل امرأة أبي أن أبيا كان يأكل الثريد ويمضمض فاه ويصلي. نعم. He says حدثنا غندر and Waki', the two of them narrated to us on the authority of Shu'bah, on the authority of Muhammad ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Zurara, who said that he heard Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Ubay. And Allah knows best, Ubay ibn Ka'b. Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Ubay, Allah knows best, it's Ubay ibn Ka'b, the Sahabi. Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Ubay. Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Ubay. Why is it not popping up? Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Ubay. No. Muhammad ibn Amr. Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Ubay. Ibn Abdullah, ibn Amr, ibn Hazm. على كل حال, Allah knows best, is Ubay ibn Ka'b. So this narration, Gundar and Waki', they narrated to us on the authority of Shu'bah, on the authority of Muhammad ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Zurara, that he heard Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Ubay narrating on Tufayl, the wife of Ubay. Let's see if we can find her to confirm this. Tufayl. الطفيل. Yes. Al-Tufail is the wife of Ubay ibn Ka'b. So we've confirmed that. So he said that I heard Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Ubay narrating on Tufail, the wife of Ubay. All right, so his grandmother or his grandfather's wife. That Ubay, Ubay ibn Ka'b, he used to eat tharid. And tharid, we talked about it. It's a dish made of dough and meat and a soup, right? Tharid is one of the better Arabic dishes. He said that Ubay used to eat tharid and he would do madmada. He would rinse his mouth out and he would offer salat. So Ubay would eat this dish of bread and meat, both of which have been touched by fire, and he would wash his mouth out simply and go offer salat. He would not make a wudu. نعم, he says, حدثنا يزيد بن هارون قال أخبرنا سعيد بن أبي عروبة عن قتادة عن صالح بن أبي خليل عن صالح أبي خليل عن صالح أبي الخليل عن عبد الله بن الحارث بن نوفل عن أم حكيم بنت الزبير أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم دخل على ضباعة فنهش عندها من كتف ثم خرج إلى الصلاة ولم يتوضأ. He says that Yazid ibn Harun narrated to us. He said that Sa'id ibn Abi Aruba narrated to or informed us on the authority of Qatada, on the authority of Salih Abil Khalil, on the authority of Abdullah ibn al-Harith ibn Nawfal, on the authority of Hakim, the daughter of Az-Zubair, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he entered upon Duba'a Sahabiyya. And so he bit, he bited. Nahasha, it's to bite off the bone, right? He ate from some shoulder meat that she had, right? He ate from some shoulder meat that she had, some food that she prepared, some meat from a shoulder blade. And then he left for salat and he did not make wudu. He says that حدثنا مرحوم بن عبد العزيز عن أبيه أنه قال رأيت أبا السوار العدوي أكل ثريدا ولحما ثم قام فصلى ولم يتوضأ. He says that Marhum ibn Abdul Aziz narrated to us on the authority of his father, who said, I saw Abu Siwar al-Adawi eating tharid along with meat, or eating tharid and meat. And then he stood and he offered salat and he did not make a wudu. He says, حدثنا عبدة بن سليمان عن إسماعيل عن الشعبي أنه قال بئس الطعام طعام يتوضأ منه. الله أكبر. He says that that Abdullah ibn Sulaiman narrated to us on the authority of Ismail, on the authority of Ash-Sha'bi. Ash-Sha'bi, Amir ibn Sharahil, famous scholar from the Tabi'in. He said, Ash-Sha'bi, how wretched is a meat how wretched is a food if the food requires you to make wudu. Bits ta'am. How evil is it of a meal, the type of food that requires you to make wudu? How bad it must be if this meal requires you to make wudu. And this is one of the logics that are used as it relates to those who don't see the obligation of making wudu from camel's meat, right? An individual who consumes something impermissible, like alcohol, like marijuana, like drugs. This individual, by the simple consumption of these things, even though if you say alcohol is najis, or you say they eat najis food like pig or something like this, the consumption of this type of food doesn't require a wudu. So why would something that is lawful and permissible, healthy and wholesome, require us to make a wudu? And this is the statement of Ash-Sha'bi, how evil of a meal or of a food it is if the food requires you to make wudu. And although that statement is a logical one, We all know the statement of Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that if the religion was based upon a ra'i, or on logic and opinion, we would wipe the bottom of the khuf. The bottom of the sock would have more right to be wiped over than the top of it. So although this statement of Shabi is a strong statement and a nice logical statement, and perhaps is in its place as it relates to not making wudu from that which was changed or altered because of the fire, it does not necessitate that there is no wudu because of eating camel's meat when there's a hadith in that issue. And at any point in time when the hadith is established, then we take the hadith over any principle or qaida or logic or opinion of anyone, whoever it may be. But this statement of Shabi is a nice one. Ta'amun yutawadda'u min. How evil of a food is a food that you have to make wudu because of it. Abu Bakr, he says, حدثنا وكيع and Israel and Abdul A'la and Ibn al-Hanafiyya أنه كان يأكل الثريد ويشرب النبيذ ويصلي ولا يتوضأ. He says that Waki' narrated to us on the authority of Israel, on the authority of Abdul A'la, on the authority of Ibn al-Hanafiyya, that he, Abdul A'la tells us about Ibn al-Hanafiyya, that he used to eat tharid, and he would drink nabidh, and he would offer salat and not make wudu. This narration is something. Ibn al-Hanafiyya, Muhammad ibn Ali, صح? Ibn al-Hanafiyya is Muhammad ibn Ali ibn al-Husayn or ibn al-Hasan? Muhammad ibn Ali Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. No, Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, he was known as Ibn al-Hanafiyya. Naam, صح. Ibn al-Hanafiyya is Muhammad, the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ibn al-Hanafiyya was a scholar from the Tabi'een min Ahl al-Bayt, from the children of Ali ibn Abi Talib, not from Fatima, that weren't from Fatima. And his statement is, or what Abdul A'la is saying about him, is that he used to eat tharid. Tharid, we've already talked about that meat and dough mixture. And he would drink nabidh. And nabidh is a word that you have to understand, because there's a lot of conversation around this word nabidh. The word linguistically, it means nabadha, to throw, right? To toss, to fling. And they used to call a drink that had something thrown into it, like dates or raisins or something like this, they would call that drink nabidh. If you threw something into your water, they would call that nabidh. And this nabidh, when you threw this item, this date, this grape, this raisin, this honey, or something like that into your water, under the right circumstances, it could fermentate. And if it fermented, it would become alcohol. And thus the word for wine in Arabic was also nabidh, because this is the way that they would make it. And so you'll find narrations talking about the Prophet ﷺ drinking nabidh. And here you find the people start to get into some conflict, some old conflict. And from the opinions of the people of Kufa, right, from the things that the people of Kufa were known for, from that which was almost obviously an error on their part, but was widespread amongst the people of Kufa. Like every area of people, you would often find them, because that opinion was popular in their area, it would be widespread, and you could almost know that a person was from this area because of the mistake that they made. So like the people of Medina, you wouldn't take their opinion about animals, permissibility, or about music. This was a mistake that some of the people made in Medina that became widespread. And the people of Basra, you wouldn't take their opinion about Al-Qadr, right? This is a mistake that the people of Basra made, and it became widespread, right? Saying the affair of Al-Qadr, right? Talking about the predestination of Allah. And you wouldn't take the people of Kufa's opinion about Nabidh, because they would drink Nabidh and they would say it was permissible. And even more than that, you might find in the Hanafi madhab, for example, them making wudu with Nabidh and saying that it's permissible to make wudu with Nabidh. And what they're talking about is wine. They're talking about wine. And there are narrations that they adopt to, or that they adhere to in this issue, that if they were authentic, it would be regarding the Nabidh before it fermentates. Like the statement that the Prophet ﷺ drunk Nabidh, this would be before it fermented. He drunk water, flavored water, right? Or the narration, which is weak, about Abdullah bin Mas'ud talking about when the Prophet ﷺ, after meeting with the jinn, asked him for some water to make wudu. He said, all I have is Nabidh. He said, pure water and a good fruit, right? And so he made wudu with the Nabidh, right? This would be talking about the water before it fermented, before it became wine, i.e. becoming something else. But scholastically, we have to know that historically, there were Muslims who held the view that Nabidh was an exception to the prohibition of alcohol. Now, of course, this opinion is one that is obviously incorrect and erroneous. The Prophet ﷺ, he forbade every intoxicant that intoxicates. And whatever intoxicates in large proportions, then it is permissible. It is impermissible in small proportions as well. Whatever intoxicates in large proportions, then it is impermissible in small proportions as well. So the point of it is that this is Nabidh. And we know that the people of Kufa, from the people, excuse me, from the people that their madhab stems back to, is Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu and Ibn Mas'ud from the Sahaba. And so here you have Muhammad ibn Ali, or who is known as Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah. He used to eat tharid and not make wudu, which is the point in this topic. But it also says that he would drink Nabidh. He would drink this Nabidh, and whether it was the Nabidh before it became fermented and alcoholic, or it was the Nabidh of the wine, according to those who held the view that you could drink wine as an exception to the prohibition of alcohol, he would drink this and he would not make a wudu. So this is them stating, because does drinking alcohol intoxicate? And if it intoxicates, is that considered somebody losing their intellect, similar to how an individual who sleeps or goes insane loses their intellect? And so if a person were to drink alcohol, whether we said it was haram, which is the correct opinion, or we made an exception for Nabidh, which is a lesser solid view, when they lose their intellect because of their intoxicatedness, do they have to make wudu? Or is his drinking of Nabidh something that didn't lead him to the level of intoxication, and thus he could offer salat and would not have to remake his wudu? And this is similar to how the state of the Muslims was before the prohibition of alcohol, right? La ta'tu salata wa antum sukara, right? Don't come to the salat while you were intoxicated. But if you were intoxicated, you couldn't approach salat, and you would have to make a wudu, Allah knows best after that. In any circumstance, that's why it's important to understand this issue. And there will be a whole chapter discussing this issue of nabidh and what the Salaf said about it. And during that chapter, inshallah, we'll try to get more clarity about this issue of flavored water / wine, both of them being referred to in Arabic as nabidh. But in any circumstance, Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah, he would eat tharid, which is the point of reference. He would eat this dish of meat and bread, and he would not make wudu when going to pray after doing so. He says, حدثنا إسماعيل بن علية عن ابن عون عن ابن سيرين أنه قال أتيت عبيدة لا أتيت عبيدة. I'm looking because Abida. This is a name that you have to know the differences between. Is a person named Ubaida or Abida. And Abida to Salmani is usually Abida to Bani Bilal al-Tamimi, Abida to Bani Humayd ibn Sahab al-Taymi, Hadha, Abida to Bani Abi Abta, Abida to Bani Amr, يقال Ibn Qais, Naam, Abida to Salmani. Just want to make sure he's from the teachers of Muhammad ibn Sirin. Naam. So this is Abida to Salmani. Where am I at? Abida. Abida. نعم. He says حدثنا إسماعيل بن علية عن ابن عون عن ابن سيرين قال أتيت عبيدة فأمر بشاة فذبحت فدعا بخبز ولبن والسمن فأكلنا ثم قام فصلى ولم يتوضأ فظننت أنه كان أحب إليه أن يتوضأ لولا أنه أراد أن يريني أنه ليس به بأس. نعم. He says that Ismail ibn Ulayya, he narrated to us on the authority of Ibn Awn, on the authority of Ibn Sirin, who said, I went to Abida. I visited Abida to Ibn Amr al-Salmani. I have Isnad al-Basri. This is a chain of events or an isnad of people from Basra. So he said that I went to Abida and he commanded that a sheep or that a sheep or a goat be brought, and then it was slaughtered. And then he requested some bread and milk and fat or butter be brought. And so we all ate. And then he stood and offered salat and he did not make wudu. Muhammad ibn Sirin, he says, and I thought that he would have liked to make wudu more. I thought, in my opinion, he probably wanted to make wudu. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to show me that it was no harm in not doing so. This is a nice narration that Abida ibn Amr al-Salmani, he, a teacher, a scholar from the Tabi'een, from Kibar al-Tabi'een, sitting with Muhammad ibn Sirin, another scholar from the Tabi'een, from the best of the Tabi'een, teaching him and educating him, eating a meal together, sharing a meal, right? These are etiquettes, right? Sharing a meal with the scholar, with the teacher, inviting your students, right? Making time to be and develop the ties of brotherhood and love for each other, but not missing an opportunity to teach when doing so. He requested that a sheep be brought, and then it was slaughtered. And then he requested that some bread, milk, and butter be brought, or fat, some butter. And it shows, right? The animal has to get slaughtered, clean, cooked, right? They're spending time together. They're hanging out. They're enjoying each other's company while all of this is happening. And then after eating, he stood, Abida, he stood and offered salat and didn't make wudu, even though it would seem that his desire was to make a wudu. He would have preferred to do so. Meaning, in this situation, I'm presented a choice: make a wudu, don't make a wudu. I know some scholars say make a wudu. I'm gonna make a wudu. Why not? It doesn't hurt. It doesn't make me a bad person to make a wudu. Instead, I would be doing something that is probably more preferable, right? Is probably mustahab, if not just mubah, right? But we'll say mustahab. So he probably wanted to make a wudu, but he didn't do so to teach Muhammad ibn Sirin that this issue is not something that's necessary. And this is a good etiquette for a teacher, right? To show the student the differences of opinion, and to educate them by leaving off something that he might do normally so they could understand and learn from it. And this is one of the methods of teaching, where everything doesn't have to be a lesson and directly stated, but can sometimes just be by example. And the Prophet ﷺ, how abundant would be his teaching of the Sahaba by example, by showing them something, knowing they were paying attention. And this is why, as teachers, it's necessary that we try to be precise in our statements and our actions, and not be random or foolish or loose with what we say and what we do, especially in an environment where others have eyes on us. Because we, inshallah, the people of the Sunnah, we are the examples. And so we need to be conscious that people are looking at us as it relates, and may Allah make us from them, that people are looking at people like that for the example of what to do. So when they see you hold your hands, and when they see you bow, and when they see you make wudu, and when they see you make dhikr after the salat, when they see what you do, they're going to take that as the example, because they assume that this person is doing that upon some type of knowledge. And so it's necessary for the student, who is the caller and the inviter to the path of Allah, that he be conscious of that. And then, as the students of the scholar or the student, the da'i, the people that are watching, it is incumbent that they pay attention, right? They should be watching their teacher and their educator, how he conducts himself, because that is a lesson that is unmatchable, right? We all can buy a book and read the book and get information out of the book, but the thing that separates the true student from the reader is his proximity to the people of knowledge, and his learning from their adab, from their akhlaq, from their interaction, right? And this is why they used to say about the Salaf, they would learn the etiquette before they learned the knowledge. 5,000 people, if I'm not mistaken to the number, but a large amount of people in the gathering of Imam Ahmed, only 400 of them had pens. Why? They were there to learn the etiquette. And so it's important that as a student, you pay attention to your teacher, right? And you see how he conducts himself. How does he handle this situation, that situation? Because the mavnoon bihim, that which is thought about them, is that their tasarrufat, their actions, aren't something that is just simply random. It's something that they're doing to teach, even if you don't think so. And this is an example of this, how Muhammad ibn Sirin, although he probably wanted to make wudu, saying about Abida that although he probably wanted to make wudu, he didn't do so, just so that Muhammad ibn Sirin could learn that that issue is not something that you have to make wudu because of. Abu Bakr, he says, حدثنا Hussein and Zaida and Abdul Aziz ibn Rufay and Ibn Abi Mulaika wa Ikrima and Aisha رضي الله تعالى عنها أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يمر بالقدر فيتناول منها العرق فيصيب منه ثم يصلي ولم يتوضأ ولم يمس ماء. He says that Hussein narrated to us on the authority of Zaida, on the authority of Abdul Aziz ibn Rufay. Abdul Aziz ibn Rufay or Rafi', but I'm pretty sure it's Rufay. Abdul Aziz ibn Rufay. No. Abdul Aziz ibn Rufay, عين بفاء مصغرا. Abdul Aziz ibn Rufay مصغرا. أبو عبد الله مكي نزيل كوفة ثقة من الرابعة مات سنة 30 ويقال بعدها وقد جاوزت 90. Now, he says that Hussein narrated to us on the authority of Zaida, on the authority of Abdul Aziz ibn Rufay', on the authority of Ibn Abi Mulaika, as well as Ikrimah, on the authority of Aisha. Right, for those who were with us in the benefits, I don't know if it's been posted yet, but the benefits from the biography of Ikrimah, a lesson that we just completed recently, the benefits from the biography of Ikrimah. And from them are those that say Ikrimah never met Aisha or never narrated directly from Aisha, and there's a disconnect, while others say that he did, right? And here, that's where this knowledge comes into play. But it's combining between Ibn Abi Mulaika and Ikrimah, right? You see the verifier in the footnotes, Sheikh Shithri, he says that this narration is sahih. So he is under the opinion that Ikrimah must have met Aisha, right? Because he's considering it as a connected statement. In any circumstance, he says that on the authority of Ibn Abi Mulaika and Ikrimah, on the authority of Aisha, radiyallahu ta'ala anha, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to pass by a pot and he would take a morsel from it and he would devour it, and then he would offer salat and he would not make wudu, nor would he touch any water. He wouldn't even wash out his mouth. He'd just go straight to salat, right? Imagine being a husband, your wife is cooking, you hear the adhan. When's dinner going to be ready? You grab a piece of meat, pop it in your mouth, head to the masjid. La bas. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did this, right? He did this. Now, the last narration, he says, حدثنا غندر عن شعبة أنه قال سمعت عثمان مولى ثقيف يحدث عن أبي زياد أنه قال شهدت ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى وأبي هريرة أو وأبا هريرة وهم ينتظرون جديا لهم في التنور فقال ابن عباس أخرجوه لنا لا يفتنا في الصلاة فأخرجوه فأكلوا منه ثم أن أبا هريرة توضأ فقال له ابن عباس أكلنا رجسا قال فقال أبو هريرة أنت خير مني وأعلم ثم الله أكبر. سبحان الله. Man. نعم جديا. What kind of, it's an animal. One second, it's a word in here. I know I'm gonna need it just to translate it properly. جديا أكل جديا. No. وجدان تجدي أجدد واستجدى اجتدى وجديت طلب جد ويجدي عنك يجدي فلان عنك والجدي الذكر من أولاد المعز. نعم. Just couldn't remember what it was. نعم الذكر من أولاد المعز. وين أنا؟ جديا الذكر من أولاد المعز. نعم. So Gundar, Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba, he says that Gundar narrated to us on the authority of Shu'bah, who said that I heard Uthman, the freed slave of Thaqif, narrating on Abi Ziyad, who said, I witnessed Ibn Abbas and Abu Hurairah, and they were waiting for a jadi. A jadi is a male foal, a kid, that's the word, a male kid from a goat, a young male goat. They call it jadi. A young male goat is called a jadi. And so he said they were waiting on a jadi of theirs that was in the oven, that was in the tanur, right? It was in the oven. And so Ibn Abbas, like this ethod is like, subhanAllah. Ibn Abbas, he said, take it out for us. We don't want to miss it because of the salah, right? Take it out the oven. We don't want it to miss us during the salah. I take the jadi out. It's done. You can stop cooking now. We're ready to eat. We don't want it to get finished while we're in the salat and then it gets devoured. We don't get it fresh out the oven. We want to eat. Come on, take it out the oven. It's ready. Take it out. We don't want it to miss us during the salat. And even in that ibarah, like even in the way that he worded it, he didn't say we don't want to miss it during the salat. If we're making salat, we're doing something better. So it's not that we don't want to miss it. We're not preoccupied with it during the salat, but we don't want it to miss us, right? We don't want it to miss us during the salat. So go ahead and take it out now. Let us eat. We don't want to be bothered. We don't want to have to be thinking. We don't want it to get eaten before us. We don't want it to get devoured. And that just shows you a real life quality of the Salaf, right? Does your brother, does your husband, does your children get mad when somebody eats all the food? Do they get sad and upset when somebody eats everything? All right, Hadha Ibn Abbas, akhrijuhu lana. Go ahead, take it out. Let it come on. Take it out for us. We don't want it to miss us during the salah. The narrator, Abi Ziyad, he says, so they took it out. They took the kid out of, and the kid, right? You got to know language. The kid is a young male goat. They took it out of the oven. And so they ate. Everybody ate from it. And then Abu Hurairah, Abi Ziyad is saying, Abu Hurairah made wudu. And so Ibn Abbas said to him, did we eat something filthy? Akelna rijsan? Did we eat something nasty? And so Abu Hurairah, and like, look at this, adab, tawadu, ta'amul, ta'atuf, tahab bainahum. Abu Hurairah, he said, you are better than me, and you have more knowledge. And then they prayed. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu kibar huwa akbar min Ibn Abbas. Right? Abu Hurairah accepted Islam the 7th year of Hijrah. He was an adult when he accepted Islam. Ibn Abbas, the 7th year of Hijrah would have been 10. So there's obviously at least 10, 15 years between them. Abu Hurairah died in the year 58. Ibn Abbas died in the year 68. But in spite of that, Abu Hurairah is who he is from the Sahaba. Right? Shahid al-Mashahid. He witnessed various events, right? Various battles along with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rawi as-Sahaba, the most abundant in his narration. But in spite of that, he said to this young child, or this young, a youth from amongst them, lesser than him in age, you're better than me. And that's out of respect for the Ibn Abbas's relationship to the Prophet ﷺ, and out of reverence for the knowledge that Ibn Abbas was able to obtain. And as some of them used to say, if Ibn Abbas had have been our ages, we wouldn't have been a 10th of him. SubhanAllah. So Abu Hurairah, he said to Ibn Abbas, when Ibn Abbas said to him, did we eat something filthy? He said to him, you're better than me, and you know more than I do. This is Abu Hurairah saying it to Ibn Abbas. You're better than me, and you know more than I do. And then they offered salah. Well, these narrations in it is a lesson at every turn, every corner. There's something to benefit from. And like this, we finished the chapter regarding those or who would not make wudu because of something that was touched by the flame. Man la yatawadda mimma massat an-nar. Those who would not make wudu because of something touched by the flame. Inshallah, next time we'll pick up with the chapter. Those who would make wudu, or those who said that there is a wudu necessary because of that which was altered or changed by the fire. And so we'll talk about that chapter, their opinions, their evidences, what they rely on in that issue, and some of the statements of the ulama regarding that topic. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. دقيقة معي. What was his name? Ubay ibn Ka'b, the Sahabi of the Prophet, the Ansari, one of the four that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to take the Quran from, and who the qira'at of the people today go back through, from those Sahaba who the qira'at of the people today go back through. Right? Now, what kind of meat was it? I'm assuming you're talking about the tharid when we talked about it earlier. Allahu a'lam. It doesn't seem that it would have been camel, because if it was camel, it would be a different topic. But probably mutton, goat meat, sheep meat, maybe cow meat. Allahu a'lam. Right? Maybe chicken. It doesn't mention. I don't know. Is it permissible to make wudu if you eat the meat, or is it no problem if you don't make wudu? That's the whole point of this topic. That's the whole point of the chapter. Those who said it is not necessary to make wudu. Man kana la yatawadda'u mimma massat an-nar. One of the views is that it is not necessary to make a wudu because of eating anything that has been touched by fire. And from them are those who have that view for every type of thing that has been touched by fire. And from them are those who exclude from that camel meat. So some of them say that camel meat still necessitates wudu, while everything else that has been touched by flame does not. And that's why we're reading these chapters, to see what they say. So is it permissible to make wudu if you eat the meat? Permissibility is a rule. Mubah. Okay, if you want to make wudu, you could feel free. But the question is, do you not have to? And all of the people that we've mentioned so far were under the view that you did not have to. So like we mentioned, Abida, he said it. Muhammad ibn Sirin said about him that it's likely that Abida wanted to make wudu, but left it off just so that Muhammad ibn Sirin could know that it wasn't necessary. Now, making wudu with wine is something that is strange, and this is from the strange views of the Hanafi madhab, but it's still one of their views, right? And although we might not support it, and although it's probably not correct, if somebody worships Allah according to that, believing it is, then we don't reject them, because they're worshiping Allah based on what they believe to be the truth, where that argument is reasonable, it's acceptable. Even if I think it's erroneous, it's an argument that they got to using the right method. And that's a conversation that we had recently, right? I think in the biography of Ikrimah, from the benefits of the biography of Ikrimah, there's a difference between having the right method but the wrong answer, and between being incorrect or being, should we say, innovative or outside the fold of Salafiyya or the proper minhaj. If a person has the right minhaj but gets the wrong answer, then we don't reject that from the person. We don't reject the person. We can reject their opinion, but we don't reject the person. So, right, these people in Kufa, from them are those who used to believe that drinking alcohol was permissible. And like this, you see how Imam Ahmed would handle somebody if he went to visit them and they had alcohol in their home, and he would turn his back to the alcohol and act as if he didn't see it, because he understood that this was a view they had. Hamza Abu Zayyad, the Qadi, the famous reciter of the Quran, one of the 7 qira'at that are mutawatir, or the 10 qira'at that are mutawatirah, He used to drink alcohol for 40 years, having the opinion that drinking nabidh was permissible. And then when he changed his view, when he, inshallah, got to what we believe to be the correct opinion, he made up his salat for 40 years. So we see that even though they might differ with us and they might have an opinion other than ours, it was done with sincerity and the correct minhaj. They followed the proper method. They just got the wrong answer. And that's why when they would rectify their mistakes, they would rectify them in a way that showed their sincerity and their ikhlas. Unlike some of us, sometimes our minhaj isn't the proper minhaj to get to the answer. And that's why you see us when it comes time to rectify, it's so hard for us to acknowledge and rectify our mistake, because the mistake is part of us. It wasn't something that we got to from the proper minhaj, but instead it's attached to our personality. It's attached to our identity. And so to recant and to backtrack and to rectify a mistake, that would be like giving up a part of ourself. And this is a quality that we have to remove and get rid of from ourselves, that if we follow the proper minhaj and we get the wrong answer, then it shouldn't be hard to fix our mistake, because I was only doing it because I thought it was true. It wasn't my, opinion that I wanted people to follow me or that I was trying to dominate or have control. I thought it was true. And so when I find out that it isn't, it's not hard for me to fix it, because all I ever wanted was the truth. But when we don't follow the right minhaj and we get to our opinions based on desire and arrogance or amazement with ourselves, then this is when it becomes hard to back away from it, because it is a part of us and part of our identity. And we see that in the action of the Salaf. But anyway, yeah, making wudu with wine is strange. Are there any exceptions of drinking nabidh? And the view that I follow, and that which I believe is strong without a doubt, i.e. undeniably correct in the religion, is you can only drink nabidh if it's not intoxicating, if it has no chance of ever intoxicating you. Because like we said, nabidh can be flavored water. If you take a date right now and put it in your water, lemon water, this is nabidh. They put something in the water. When you go to the hotel and at the counter, they have lemons in the water, this is nabidh. And so inshallah, that's permissible, because no matter how much of it you drink, you won't get intoxicated. But if at any point in time, anything that you consume could intoxicate you in large amounts, then small amounts of it is haram, even if the small amount doesn't intoxicate. Wa alaikum assalam. Yes, it can be date infused water. It can be anything that is infused into the water, right? Is it an intoxicant? It depends. If it fermentates, then it's an intoxicant. Intoxicant is the fruit or the honey or the wheat or whatever you're putting into the water going bad, right? When it gets hot, those sugars, they fermentate, and it's going bad. It's becoming rotten, but that rottenness of the fruit can sometimes produce a sweet taste, and it can produce an intoxicated state. And so when those things heat up and those sugars cook, it turns into the alcohol, the intoxicant that is impermissible. But if it doesn't do that, if you like, when we go to the Muslim market, right, the Middle East markets or whatever they may be, and you buy those non-alcoholic beers, they're still beer. There's just no possible intoxicant in it, as opposed to a 5% beer, right, a near beer, O'Doul's or whatever they used to sell, where it's only 5% alcohol. So if you drink enough of them, you'll get a buzz and you'll get drunk. But when you go to the Muslim markets and they have those beers with the pomegranate infused and the lemon and the apple infused, those things are beers. They're barley water, but they don't intoxicate. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu used to drink barley water with sha'ir in it, right? Beer. But he would drink it before it would become intoxicated. Do you have to make wudu from eating a goat? That's the whole issue, right? That's the whole issue of this topic. So everybody that we mentioned so far has said no. The next chapter, next time, it will be them talking about those who said you did have to make wudu because of eating cooked goat meat. I make wudu after eating I don't know what state is. Saute, like Chinese food, stir fry. Maybe. I mean, if you have that view that you have to make wudu from eating anything that the fire touched, then go for it. But like we said, this is an opinion that scholars disagree in. Some of them say it's abrogated. Some of them say the wudu that is being referenced is the washing out of the mouth. But in any circumstance, the Prophet ﷺ, he ate this portion, this morsel of meat, like Aisha mentioned, and then he went to salat and he didn't make wudu or touch any water. Sometimes I make nabith. I thought that it's the Prophet's favorite drink. As far as his favorite drink, I don't know. I don't know it to be his favorite drink. If I had to say by default, I would say milk, right? I would say milk. On top of that, I might say Zemzem. You see what I'm saying? I don't know, but that's milk, because there's a hadith that it's the best. Allahumma barik li fi wa zidni min. And when he would drink anything else, he would say Allahumma barik li fi wa zidni khayran min. And so milk is the best. But I don't know if it's his favorite, but that might be a statement that somebody did to support their opinion. But as long as the nabith that you're making isn't alcoholic, it's a good drink, right? Who wants just plain water all the time? We drink sodas, we drink juice. And juice, you have to remember, juice during that time would have been heavy. It would have been pulpy, right? It's not like the grape drink and the orange drink that we have now that's refined and processed. So if you didn't want something that heavy and that thick, like mango juice is thick, but if you wanted something smooth and easy to drink, nabith would be the way to go. It gives your water some flavor, but it still goes down like water. Now, I learned from another teacher that it is abrogated. Alhamdulillah. Like we said, there's many opinions. Our goal here isn't to say what's right or wrong, because that's through education, right? And our goal here is just to mention who said what and to translate these books so that when you find yourself in a position as you're learning, you have some reference. We all want to be Salafi, and we all should be Salafi. And so from being Salafi is knowing what the Salaf said. And because we saw that there was a missing block of information in English, right? Alhamdulillah, we have the Quran translated with multiple tafasir. And we have a lot of hadith translated from the books that are necessary for a student in English, even with shuruh. But what we were missing was the statements of the Sahaba and the actions of the Sahaba and the Tabi'een. And so that is what has pushed us on this project. Barnamij al-Salaf, or the program that has to deal with the knowledge of the Salaf, not specifically what the Quran says or what the Prophet ﷺ said, but how the Salaf approached that information, so we can see how they interacted with the text. Because upon you is the Quran and the Sunnah, upon the minhaj of the Salaf, or the fahm of the Salaf. And so therefore we need to know how the Salaf understood and what's the way, the minhaj that the Salaf followed to get to their results. And so alhamdulillah, as far as it relates to getting the knowledge, we still encourage you, right? You have to get founded by going to a teacher who can actually raise you upon knowledge. And that's not the agenda of these classes. The agenda is just to produce the information, so you have a resource to go back to until or when you have the ability to go back and hit the books directly. And Allah knows best. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.